Hey, good evening. It's Monday, May 1st, and welcome to Everyday Talk 24/7. Got a new week together. So really good to have you along today. Today I'm going to answer a question, and I love you. Well, I love when you all do this. I got a question to clarify from the Q&A Friday about exactly what is persecution. I gave some general guidelines, but the questioner wanted to know specifically what are biblical examples of persecution. And I thought it was such a good question. I'm going to do a separate video on it tonight. So we have this dilemma. If we're given a hard time in life or we have something difficult happen to us and we're Christians, we sometimes wonder, is that because I'm a Christian or because I'm not doing so well or I'm having a problem? How do I tell what's legitimate persecution and what's not? Well, it's just a matter of the ordinary difficult times of day-to-day life, or what is legitimate persecution? Let me read again from the passage in John 15, where Jesus actually lays this out. John 15, verses 18 to 20, we read this. If the world hates you, know that it has hated me before you. So he's anticipating that the disciples are going to get some problems. Remember, this is in that time after they've had the upper room and they've had the Lord's Supper, the last Passover, and their feet have been washed. And then he has this extended discussion time with them before the next day, Friday, when Jesus is persecuted to the point of death. If the world hates you, know that it has hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world loves its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, because of this the world hates you. So we can expect some persecution. That's what Jesus is telling us. Remember, the word that I said to you, a slave is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they kept my word, they will keep yours also. He's getting ready to send them out and preparing them for what's going to happen. So in a general way, Jesus is promising the persecution will come if we're faithful to him. Now here's some specifics, which I think is what the viewer's after. The first one we can find is just in the way that we're treated unfairly, and unwise, unfair, unjust comparisons are made. For example, also in Matthew's Gospel, a little bit earlier, we read from John 15, 18 John 15, 18, and 20 before, but now, in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 11, verses 18 and 19, Jesus is talking. For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say he has a demon. In other words, John's straight-laced. And, well, you're not eating or drinking, you must have a demon. But the Son of Man came eating and drinking, the things that they were criticizing him not doing, and they say, here is a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. But wisdom is proved right by her deeds. What this means is that they're making wrong, unjust comparisons, trying to slander Jesus. But Jesus says, look, in the end, who is right will be shown to be clear. So that's one way. It's not as hard as others, but it is a form of persecution. We're being treated unfairly. And then, of course, as we see Jesus' life, we see the hatred that is there, to the point where the Pharisees and the scribes are plotting to kill him. And they're trapping him. They're trying to give him traps and fall into intellectual traps and trying to trick him about the Bible. And ultimately that ends up in the ultimate persecution of the physical persecution on the cross. And over time in church history, we've seen that. So you can expect persecution which is unfair and sometimes harming, physical, being treated unfairly at work. And this is because of your faith, not because you're a good or bad person. We get more clarity in this when we look at Peter. 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 18 to 21. This great summary of persecution. Slaves. Remember, the majority of the church at that time, maybe upper 90%, were in fact slaves of some sort. Slaves, in reverent fear of God, submit yourselves to your masters, not only to those who are good and considerate, but also to those who are harsh. For it is commendable if someone bears up under the pain of unjust suffering, because they are conscious of God. But how is it to your credit if you receive a beating for doing wrong and endure it? In other words, if you mess up at work or you do the wrong thing, well, I'm persecuted because I'm a Christian. No, if you did the wrong thing, you deserve your punishment. But, and this is the end of verse 20, but if you suffer for doing good and you endure it, this is commendable before God. And then verse 21, to this you were called, because Christ suffered for you, leaving you an example that you should follow in his steps. So legitimate persecution, you're doing it because you're conscious of God, that's good. But persecution that's brought on by your poor behavior, that has nothing to do with being a Christian. That's just you not getting the job done. But verse 21 is the key. To this you were called. When were you called? We just read it in John's Gospel. Remember the word I said to you. A slave is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they kept my word, they will keep yours also. We were called to this. We want to be united to Christ. And it may come in the terms of just being falsely, hypocritically compared. Oh, you're a Christian, huh? And you drink or you don't drink. And they're going to nail you either way. Or you're being kind, huh? Well, all you're doing is you're just trying to get up in the world. So your motives are going to be impugned. There may be physical hardship. You may lose a job. There may be physical consequences. The key is to make sure you're doing this because you know it represents Christ. And if you're persecuted for that, then Jesus is saying, you were called to this. Take comfort in it. But don't take comfort in being persecuted for your wrong behavior. So look carefully at that passage in 1 Peter 2, verses 18 and 21. They explain what Jesus is talking about in John, where he says that we will be persecuted if we want to go after him, because he was. And I hope that clears it up a little bit for you. Again, any thoughts, questions, or more clarification, please just ask. Just love this kind of interaction. Thank you so much, and Lord willing, we'll be talking again tomorrow. You have a great evening. Good night. Thank you so much for watching. It is such a huge encouragement.